Welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. We discuss 6 questions in less than 9 minutes because leaders know how to be concise. We'll go ahead and get started with today's episode and our guest. First question, in a few sentences, tell us who you are and what you do.
Oh, thanks, Sean. I guess professionally, I'm a glutton for punishment, which is another way of saying that I'm a 5-time CEO of startup business-to-business companies. But the capsule summary is I grew up in Pittsburgh, went to MIT as an undergrad computer science, UCLA computer science, spent a few years as a software architect and manager. And as you often are exposed to in small companies, I got exposed to other areas, and that was product management. And I got really turned on by the other variables, pricing, competitive behavior, this whole mystery of sales, which I'd never been exposed to. And so I moved over to the dark side and of marketing and management. Was a VP of marketing twice, a French-based company called Elsys, then Rational Software, which is now IBM Rational, for 8 years. And then went the startup CEO route, worked with some great venture capitalists, and now I'm CEO of a company out of the University of Utah called Backdrop Health, which we just launched earlier this year.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, congratulations on the launch.
Thanks.
Well, second question, what's the best thing about working with a team?
I think the best thing about working with the team is the ability to work with people better than yourself in every area. There are things that you can do as an individual, and that's very satisfying and fun, but there are things that can only be accomplished with teams and teamwork. And I've been really lucky in my career in tech that I've always worked with really brilliant people, the technical founders, people in sales, far more than I do, people in marketing, people in finance, every area. And part of the excitement of a team is the camaraderie and the chance to accomplish more than you can accomplish one-on-one or as an individual. But just the idea of being able to learn from people who are so great in their areas, and the fact that if you have a really high confidence, high trust team, everybody learns and gets better. We're learning other areas, learning about the business, learning about human interactions, learning about business more broadly. So it's the learning experience and the ability to be around people way better than you are in a given area.
Well, that's a great comment about the learning experience that can happen within a team. That's a great comment. Well, question number 3, I hear from other leaders of teams that it can be a challenge to get team members engaged. What are your thoughts?
What's interesting, it's probably more challenging today with people working remotely than working in person. But I think the issues are pretty similar. For me, I've always been lucky to work with very, very good teams with great people who were kind of motivated self-starters. That's true in tech and certainly the startup world in general. But in terms of being a CEO and leading a team, and I think being a manager at any level, because before I was CEO, I was a manager at lower levels, it's really an issue of, is there a sense of mission? And as the team leader, do you exude confidence and excitement about what's happening? That doesn't mean you aren't aware of the challenges, because there are challenges with any team trying to do something hard. But I think if you just have a sense of excitement and passion about what you're doing at whatever level of team you're leading, that goes a long way to get people motivated and focused. Because if you come across as kind of slumpy and grouchy and have a hangdog attitude, that's not a turn on for anybody else. And if that's going to hamper the ability of the team to work together. But if you're excited and mindful of the reality, the good, bad, and the ugly, but you have some passion for what you're doing, I think that's the real key for engaging a team fully.
Great comment. Great comment. Question number 4, what other piece of advice do you have for team leaders?
That's interesting because I've seen a lot of teams and I've led a lot of teams, 5 times as CEO, twice as VP of marketing, and earlier as, product management leader and development manager. I think the key thing for me, for any team, and advice to anybody who's trying to lead a team is, at whatever level you are leading your team, to have really high clarity about what it is you want the team to accomplish. Because a lot of the things you see people struggling with in a team, maybe it's an overall company, a startup that may be languishing a bit, maybe it's a smaller team in a bigger organization. But if there's a lack of clarity about what the real goals are for that particular team, this month, this quarter, this year, or if there are too many goals, that's really a problem for getting the team to perform at all, let alone at maximum efficiency. And you see a lot of signatures of this. Sometimes it's just not clear what the goals are at all, and that you're just drifting. Sometimes there are too many goals, I always laugh when I see, statements from teams, or even worse, corporate mission statements that have 15 things to focus on. It's just nonsense, because as a practical matter, you can't focus on that many. It just becomes pablum. It's useless, and it's just noise, even if all 15 are interesting in and of themselves. So as a practical matter, if you're leading a team, you want to figure out what are the 3 or 4 top things you want to focus on with utter clarity and focus, and go from there. And then I think the other issue, aside from clarity, is just candor, being open with people. I think you treat people like adults, especially in the startup world. People are aware they have other options. People are aware the companies, especially startups, have struggles. That's part of the fun and the excitement and the satisfaction to overcome those struggles. But you just want to be candid. Here's the good, the bad, and the ugly. Here's what's going right. Here's what's not going so well. Here's what's really a problem. Here's what might put us out of business. Here's what might hurt the team and its ability to deliver. And just being open about that, I think, enables and motivates people, because people can see that, hey, this manager of mine is really being open. And if he or she is candid about what the issues are, that can draw the best out of everybody on the team and make the whole team just perform at a much, much higher level. So I think clarity and candor and open communication. And I think the other thing that I've always found really important is a sense of fun and play. You spend a lot of time working with people. It's serious stuff trying to build a company, especially when you have investors on your back, as they should be when they put capital into a company. But people like to laugh and have fun and joke around, and just a sense of camaraderie and a team spirit, and laughing at yourself at any level, certainly as a manager, I think has always been effective for me. And in my case, there's a lot to laugh about, so it's easy, but it's, I think it's good advice for anybody in any team to just have a sense of humor about yourself, about the team, about the world, and weave that into day-to-day life. And it just makes the whole team communicate better and be more creative and work more efficiently, in my experience.
Those are certainly some great words of wisdom, because that is something that, I think for any of us, that humor is really important. It keeps us light, it keeps us creative, and really in a positive mindset. That's great advice. Thanks. Well, question number 5, what other successful team leaders, such as yourself, would you like to recognize as having had a positive influence in your life?
Well, good question. I mean, there are a bunch of them that I've met over the years. Certainly, the 2 guys who founded Rational Software, Paul and Mike, were just superb guys. They met at the Air Force Academy years ago. They left the Air Force after being in active service to start the company to try to make a market improvement in software development methodologies. Seeing how many large-scale projects for the government failed to deliver something reasonable, and they built Rational through just unbelievable integrity, intensity, and focus into a phenomenally successful company. It got to over 460 million in revenue. When I joined the company, it was 28 million in sales. When I left 8 years later, it was 460 million in sales. And they got to about almost 800 million, as I recall, by the time they were bought by IBM. But it was a phenomenal, high trust, high performance team at all levels. And I have so many friends there who work with me at Rational, who I'm still in very close contact with, and have worked with again in several places. There are a couple of local people that I like that might be interesting for the podcast. Spencer Schaefer is a terrific guy. He actually is interesting because he ran for many years a very successful executive recruiting firm here in Salt Lake City, and now is head of ETC Group, environmental engineering firm. And I did some work with him last year, but a terrific guy with an interesting perspective. Another good guy locally, Rob Theolis, who was one of the founders and CEO for almost 10 years of Observe Point, which is a very successful local high-growth software company. Some terrific people I've worked with more recently. But I've been lucky over the years to have founders who are very creative and clever, clients who are very creative and clever, and people I've learned a lot from over the years in all dimensions. So I've been very lucky and grateful for that in my career.
It's definitely a blessing to have positive people that can influence in the right way. So thank you for sharing those. Well, final question. Tell us a little bit about your first job.
It's interesting. I was thinking back about this, and my very first job for pay, aside from mowing people's lawns and whatnot, as a teenager, was I remember getting a lecture. Hi, Kitty. I expected to work as part-time during the school year, as many of my fellow students did. And I thought I'd get a job working at the library or food service or something, and ended up you get an advisor there, and my advisor, amazingly, was a world-famous computer scientist. And I had no business being with this guy because I was way outclassed by him, but it's just the luck of the draw. we were chatting, and I had done some programming in high school, which is common now, but not so common back then.
Mhm.
And I ended up getting a job right away working as a programmer on one of the big computer systems at MIT. So my first job was actually paid being a software developer. So that was pretty cool right out of high school and my first weeks in college.
Yeah, that's impressive. Well, thank you so much, Jerry. Appreciate you being on the podcast today. How can people find you?
I can check out me on LinkedIn, Jerry Rudison, and or if you go to www.backdrophealth.com, one word, you can see my LinkedIn contact there in the bio at the very end of the as one of the executives of that company.
Very good. This is Sean Richards with the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. For more ideas, you can find us on LinkedIn by searching Blue Sky Business Consulting. Thanks for joining us today. Have a great day.
Thanks, Sean. Bye.